Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tracy Jones. Our guest today is Tony Boquet. Tony is an author, a speaker, a teacher, a storyteller. He has decades of experience in the financial industry, and he even teaches at the American College of Financial Services. So you're going to really enjoy what Tony has to share with us about paying the price of leadership.
You're listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracy Jones.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tracy Jones. Welcome to the Tremendous Leadership Podcast, Leaders on Leadership, where we pull back the curtain on leadership and talk to tremendous leaders about what it took them to pay the price of leadership. And I am so excited to share with today. Our guest is Tony Boquet. Tony is a dear friend of the family, knew my father, a longtime supporter of mine, and just an incredible leader. For over 37 years, Tony has been a leader, a mentor, a trainer, a dynamic storyteller, a speaker, and a solutionary in the financial services industry. He recently published his first book through Bush Publishing, and it is titled, and I have my autographed copy, The Bloodline of Wisdom, The Awakening of the Modern Solutionary. He is currently a vice president and adjunct instructor at the American College of Financial Services. Welcome, tremendous Tony.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tracy. It's wonderful to be here with you.
I love it. Hey, Tony, tell people real quick what the American College of Financial Services is.
We are the nonprofit institution of higher learning for the financial service industry.
Okay.
We've been around since 1927, and we started the first designation for our industry, the Chartered Life Underwriter designation. So it's been around over 90 years.
Wow. And how long have you been teaching there?
Well, I started being a student at the college back in the early 80s.
Okay.
I started. Yeah, that's a long time, Tracy. I had hair back then, it was amazing. And,
I love it.
I started instructing some of their courses because they really propelled my career. And I saw the vision that if I could help others create benefit through this educational format, I thought I wanted to be a part of that. And then toward the end of my career in the estate planning field, I decided to go to work full-time at the college. And I've been there full-time as the VP of Business Development for the last over 13 years already.
I can't believe it. And Tony knew my father from the life insurance industry. He's a tremendous leader. For all our leaders out there from the financial services and life insurance, you're going to get some really good stuff.
That's true. Charlie was an amazing mentor of mine and just a wonderful man. And I can't say enough good things about him.
Well, he loved you, Tony. And I am so thankful you are still around to support the next generation of tremendousness. And I just thank you for all the wisdom. And we're going to talk a little bit about the price of leadership. And I want everybody to then connect with you so they can be as inspired by all the great stuff you put out as I am. Okay?
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll go ahead and get started. So my father came out with a little booklet called The Price of Leadership, one of the speeches that he did throughout his career. And we know that leadership is one of the most joyful, beautiful things. We're all called to lead. We're born to lead, but it's also one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. And there's a price you have to pay for it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Okay. So one of the first prices of leadership that my father talks about as a leader is the loneliness that goes with being in the leadership position. So Tony, can you share with me what throughout your career, different venues you've been in and different seasons of your life, what does loneliness mean for you as a leader? And what wisdom do you have to share with our listeners about how they would handle that?
Loneliness, and Charlie did a great job of explaining that we're all lonely at times. I mean, so the loneliness that comes with the price for leadership is not necessarily missing people. It's so much, it takes so much out of you that it becomes a longingness in your own body, in your own spirit. Sometimes you'll long for to be able to share things with people that it's just not the right time. You have to bear that burden yourself. And that's a lonely situation. that you put yourself in, because to bear things before a person's ready to receive it, it's of no value to you. It's of no value to them. So a lot of times the loneliness is self-inflicted, and we bear that graciously because we know that eventually it will pay off for the student as well as the leader.
Tony, I have never heard it put like that. And it is in your soul, and it is forbearance. And that's really incredible way to put it, that as leaders, we kind of have already walked the walk. So it's like a parent and a child. You know what's going to happen if they go this route, but you kind of have to wait until they're open to receive it, like a sponge. Otherwise, it's not going to do any good.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
When the student's ready, the teacher appears. And a lot of times as a leader, you have to get good at reading your people. You have to be good at knowing when are they ready to receive it. I had a gentleman once I hired. He used to get so upset with me because sometimes when he did very, very good, I would just find something to critique him on. But yet when he did very badly, I'd praise him left and right. And he used to come to me and he says, "You're so confusing. I can't understand you." And I said, "But Chris, when you're doing poorly, you're beating yourself up way more than I'll ever beat you up. So I don't need to apply that to you. And when you're doing good, sometimes we get cocky with ourselves and we become complacent because we think we've reached the destiny when we really haven't. So it's a loneliness when you have to hold back certain things from people that you're really dying to share. You really want them to accept it. And sometimes that's a loneliness you have to accept as a leader.
Well, and when you are in the teacher role, which is really what a leader is, you are different. I mean, I think of Jesus and they called him teacher, but he's there to pour in, but he's also a little bit separated. But I love that when somebody's down, that's when you lift up. And when somebody's riding high, that's when you keep them from smacking their head.
Too high. That's right. Keep the head down. Yeah.
Yeah. From going like this. I love that. I never thought about that. That's really, really good. Awesome, Tony. You're so tremendous.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Learn from the best tremendous, though.
It just keeps flowing and pouring. All right. So, Tony, the next thing you talked about was weariness. And I'm sure you know a thing or two about being in the career field, especially where you work on commissions and have to build your own business and paychecks. We don't know. Nothing's guaranteed. Okay. How do you deal with weariness? And what does this mean for weariness as a leader? Maybe you're growing your team, or you're talking about even trying to pour into people when we thought everybody wanted to hear our wisdom and they don't want to hear it. How do you handle that?
It gets hard, Tracy. It's very difficult. Weariness, and Charlie's speech on the price of leadership speaks so well to that. I mean, it's so easy to understand when he lays it out. So simple. Yeah. But the weariness that I felt as a leader was just how do I overcome when I'm just so beat? At night you get to the point where you're drained, you're mentally drained because you have to be on your best all the time as a leader. And it drains you. It becomes draining. And, like Charlie, my family suffered from that. No matter how hard you try, it's very difficult to not show that weariness, not to show it to your people. So during the day, everybody thought, hey, this guy's always on fire. But yet at night, I was zonked. I mean, it was just totally draining. So the weariness does weigh on you after a while. But it's so rewarding that you're willing to take that weight of the weariness. You're willing to bear whatever price that is. You try your very best to balance. In my book, I speak about the balance of the personal, the professional, and the spiritual. When I was young and I was working with your father and talking to your father, I didn't understand that. I was young. I was impetuous. I was I was everything I shouldn't be, and
Yeah.
it was so hard to understand the personal, the professional, and the spiritual balance. Once I got that, once I understood that, the weariness went away. The weariness left me because I wasn't struggling to take all of that weight myself. And, whenever you relieve some of that tension, the weariness is gone.
Right.
And it also comes with success, though. Once you know you can do it, in my first management position, I was 23 years old. I was young. I was foolish. I was, like I said, a lot of adjectives that I could put on myself, none of which would have been leader at the time. But, those early days, I thought I had to do it all. And the weariness was unbelievable because you'd get back at night and just, all you could do is lay down your head and, sleep like a baby, cry every 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Get up and get out the next day.
That's true.
Well, Tony, I'm glad you said that. I can remember watching my dad. He would be on the road 250 days a year, speaking, traveling, and selling. And I remember when he'd come home and just be out. But I love how you talked about your family. That's not necessarily a bad thing because family should be a source of replenishment. Now, you don't want to be so exhausted that you don't have time for your family. But I can remember as a child and a young girl even understanding my dad's got grit and he's changing the world and he's out there and he's going to be tired when he comes home. And that's okay. So I think sometimes people try and shield everything and like, oh, I don't want to put this on my family. But yet your family is there to be a support structure and to really build you up. And you can go home and be yourself with your family. You know what I'm saying?
I do. My wife, if it wouldn't have been for my wife, I wouldn't have been successful in my career.
Right.
No doubt in my mind. I mean, she handled the home life. I mean, she was a stay-at-home mother and she handled things that, frankly, I didn't want to handle because and if she wouldn't have been there to handle that, I don't know what I would have done.
Right. Well, Dad said the same thing about Mom. The reason he could go out and burn the candle like he did, of course, he got replenished spiritually, was because he had a great life partner that was home taking care of this aspect of it. And so he didn't have to come home tired from work and then be tired because he has to deal with home. They both were tired, but then they would come together and then have that spiritual basis where they just continue to get their replenishment. But I'm really glad you said that because I think a lot of times people are like, well, you don't want to put this on your family. It's like, it's not putting on your family. I just got hitched. Okay. And I did that, because two are stronger than one, it's always. The cord of three strands is not broken. So the more you covenant with people, the stronger you become.
Yes, ma'am.
And they get to share in the tiredness of you. They don't only want to hear about the good stuff. They need to be there when you're just so tired, you don't know what to do. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And, all of my successes, she shared with me. I mean, we were able to go to conferences all over the world. And that was my gift to her for all the times that I wasn't there. And, it was her reward more so than myself because, I really wanted her to enjoy some of the rewards that I earned. So it was a blessing.
That's beautiful.
In so many ways.
Well, Gloria used to say that she never once complained. And she's like, I'm just along for the ride. And boy, what a ride it was. She did her part. But you're right. That's a beautiful thing. And that's good because it's not always a traditional, hey, just come home. Sometimes you work really, really hard to meet a goal. And then you got these trips and you got to, fellowship and see all over the world and be with other people and realize, hey, we're in this as little units all together. And that's a beautiful thing.
Right. It was a beautiful thing.
I love it. All right. So we talked about loneliness. You gave me great insight on that. You gave me a great insight on how you define weariness and how you handle that. The next point he talked about was abandonment. And my dad would always say, listen, we need to get rid of what we like and want to think about in favor of what we ought and need to think about. How do you stay focused, Tony, on what you need to stay focused on? Because you're in the business of helping people and so many people need help. But how do you stay focused so your resources stay on target and doing the most good for the most people?
Well, one of the things I found amazing about Charlie and this speech is abandonment is one of the three human fears.
Right, it is.
We only have three fears.
Mm-hmm.
We fear harm, whether it's bodily harm or spiritual harm, or we have that fear of harm. Harm is overcome by courage when you have that fear. Mm-hmm. Abandonment is only conquered through community. That's the only way we can overcome that abandonment that Charlie spoke about. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the third fear is unworthiness, and that's love. Love conquers the unworthiness. But with abandonment, one of the things that I think about all the time is how I was able to bring teams together and build up my fear of abandonment, because it was a fear. It was an internal fear that you have, that am I leading them in the right place, or will they lead me? Will I be able to lead them, or will they leave because they see it differently than I see it? Yeah. And that'll go into a little bit more discussion when we get to the vision part of the prize. But that's anytime you have a team, you have that abandonment issue. Whether you will lead them or they will leave you, it's always present. It's always present. And one of the things that I think about, and me, I like stories. Mm-hmm. And when I was in my first agency and I was leading a group of about 74 individuals at the time, and I was still a fairly young man at 26, 27 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember back then a Christmas party. I gave a Christmas party every year for my people, and I'd get gifts for them. Well, toward the end of the Christmas event, one of my sales managers invited me to go in the conference room with him. He wanted to talk to me separately. We were holding it in one of my larger offices, so he brought me into the conference room. And there were the other 5 sales managers that worked for me. And on the conference room table was a wrapped gift. And they said, "This is your Christmas present from us." So I thought, that's kind of nice, Yeah. I started opening the gift. It was the Tony Robbins Personal Power Course. It was a 30-day development course by Tony Robbins. Uh-huh. And one of the speakers told me at that meeting, they said, "Tony, we love you. You're one of the smartest people we've ever worked for. But," he says, "if you don't take this personal power course, we're all quitting today.
No.
We're leaving." They say, and this was from someone I viewed as a very close friend. He was one of my mentors, who was now I was his supervisor now. But he had mentored me in my early career. So I thought very highly of this gentleman. And he says, "We're not joking." He says, "We will terminate our contract if you don't do this." And he says, "Because we think enough of you, we will all be here with you and we'll take this course with you."
Man.
And he says, and I asked, I said, "Well, what's wrong? What am I not doing right? Because y'all are all making more money than you've ever made in your career. You were all very successful. We just finished one of the best years. We were in the top 3 of the company we worked for." Mm-hmm. I said, I don't get it. Why am I such a bad guy that you're saying you're going to quit?" And he says, "Tony," he says, you think only of yourself." He says, "You terminate people because they're not doing what you want them to do, and they have a life outside of this company." And he was right. He was 100% right. And that act of a gift changed my life, because I did take that personal power course. I learned an awful lot about me and about leadership. And it was very emotional for a lot of those sessions, because all of these men and women I recruited into this business.
Right.
and they were there with me going through this. And some of them drove 2 hours just to come to this meeting. So
Yes.
it was an inconvenience for them. And I didn't take it lightly, Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed my life.
Uh-huh.
But I was abandoning them in all essence through the actions that I was doing. I was abandoning them when I thought I was leading. I thought I was doing a good job in leadership because we were hitting all the goals. The following year was our best year ever because of them. So it changed my life, and it added a new meaning to what it meant to be abandoned. So it was very interesting. It was an interesting time in my life.
Well, thank you for that transparency and sharing that. I've had a couple people, not as pronounced as that, but that I was in charge of leading, came and gave me the constructive kindness, where they told me truth and love, but let me know in no uncertain circumstances, I know where your heart is, but you have got to change, or ma'am, or else you're not going to be leading anyone. And I was like, and I'm so thankful. So that you had people like that were so vested in you, they helped you abandon the bad parts of being a leader. We all have that. I mean, nobody really, you learn it. And I always say, if you want a better leader, be a better follower. And so the fact that you had people that were invested in you and let you know exactly what you need to do and what we need to abandon. And not everything we focus or think we're doing needs to make the cut to the next level of leadership.
Right.
Yeah.
So true. Well said.
And I just, I would talk a lot about that. You learn to unlearn what you thought you knew and relearn what you needed to learn. And so your point to that, man, Tony, I never thought of abandonment like that. Mm-hmm. And so do you think that step, you talk about your fear that, out of the 3 fears, that's my one fear. And I was just talking to somebody the other night about that. And I'm like, we were just talking about that fear of abandonment. And do you think that kind of drove you as a leader going through that
Sure.
You just were so focused on end results? You just said, because now break that down for me, Tony, because a lot of us in leadership positions where we have to meet goals and stuff, should you be keeping people if they are not meeting the standards? Unpack that for me.
Well, that was what my thinking was back then. Right. What am I doing wrong? I'm goal setting. I'm hitting my goals. I'm exceeding my goals. But one of the things I didn't understand was my goal should have been less than their goals. So in other words, if Tracy works for me, if my goal is for you to make $80,000 a year to make your piece of the pie to fulfill my goal, then your goal has to be more than 80,000. If you want to make 60,000, and I'm not okay with that because of the results it would take to get there, then I have the problem, not you, because you only need to earn 60,000 a year. If that's what's going to drive you, then I'm putting my weight on your shoulders.
Okay.
If you needed to make $130,000 a year in income, that means your goal would be much bigger than my 80,000.
Okay.
And then if I'm managing to your goal, not mine, then there's no push, there's no shove, there's just together pulling. So that was the thing I didn't get.
That makes
everybody had to meet my objectives.
Okay.
And my objectives may have been too much for some people.
So you kind of thought everybody should be on the $1 million round table, and other people may have been like, no, I'm perfectly fine at this level. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's you. Because I can remember when I was in the Air Force, and I remember one time I'm like, doesn't everybody want to be chief of staff of the Air Force or a 4-star? And they're like, no. Some of us just want to launch and recover jets for 20 years. And I'm like, okay, point taken. But I think, as leaders, we're like, I keep getting people, raising them up. As long as there are some people that will land and be really good at what they do right there. And that's okay.
That is
interesting. Okay.
As long as their place
right
is above the minimum standard I have.
Well, and exactly. And I'm glad you said that because again, and we tell people, because I talk a lot about organizational citizenship behaviors, and that's where you're a great citizen of the organization. But the understanding is you meet the bare minimum threshold. That goes without saying. People are like, oh, well, they just did. No, you're getting paid. You have to at least perform at this level. We're adults. Come on now. And
That's
this
right.
isn't rocket science. So you need, but we're talking about kind of the above and beyond. If you're a good performer, if you're a good, solid person at this level, and you're meeting the standards, that's okay. That's okay.
That's right.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you unpacked that. Yeah, because I think some people would be like, well, wait a minute, if they're not hitting the standards, but it was your standards that they were not hitting. Right. Yeah. And that's
my high standard.
Your stand. But then obviously you had this team of 4 people or 5 men or women that honestly, it's that drum line. There are some people you can just keep pushing. I know my dad was really tough on me, but because he knew I'm not letting you get away with this.
That's right. You have it in you.
You have it in you. So that as a leader, you need to realize who has it in them and who doesn't.
Yes. And that comes with coaching and supervision. And that's all part of the chores that make up what we do.
Right. I love it. Oh, thanks, Tony. Thank you for breaking that whole thing down and sharing that with us. Wow. That must have been a Christmas party you never, ever forgot.
I will never forget that. 1988 to be exact. So yes, I will remember that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'm very glad they did that to you. That's cool.
Me too. I was too. Yeah, I wasn't that evening though. That evening I wasn't so happy.
Party too. Well, you know what? And I tell people, you know what? They could have quit and gone to somebody else, or they could have gone to your boss and gotten you fired. So I'm so thankful for the people. Although it's like, one of my enlisted guys told me this in the military. We'd applied to Turkey, and I'm like, you know what? If the enemy would have shot me, that would have hurt less than what he said to me. But I was so thankful he let me know, because I was just trying to be all officery, and I didn't realize. I'm not Patton, and not everybody relates well to Patton. So
that's right. That's exactly right.
Okay. So the last one he talked about, Tony, was vision. He says the fourth price of leadership is vision. And my father always said he had a very pragmatic, realistic thing. He flunked out of the school in the 8th grade, and he's like, I'm a simple man with drive, but he called vision just simply seeing what needs to be done and then doing it. And so talk to me about vision. How do you hone your vision? How do you cast it? How do you refine it? Share with me what that means.
Well, I have a very interesting look at vision. I see vision as a law, as a natural law. And I relate it to personal, professional, and spiritual. We all have a vision. We're at a location. So think of yourself as in a location, whether it's your beautiful home, whether it's where you are spiritually, or where you are in your career, you're in a location. That location will give you the ability to see certain things. So if you look out of that lovely window behind you, you will see whatever's there. And that's going to be your vision.
Okay.
But your location matters. Because if you don't know where your location is, then you can't actually see where you literally are. So for a vision, it starts with motivation. You have to be motivated.
Right.
And the motivation should change your perspective. So you start with a vision, you find the motivation, that changes your perspective, and then that perspective drives you to a new location. So when you have all of these things in place, my vision will continuously be changing because my location is continuously changing. So we have to start with motivating people. We have to be very good at motivating them, because one thing I learned very early in my leadership roles is I can't change anyone.
Right.
I cannot change anyone but myself. So if I can only change myself, then I need to be able to motivate people to change their perspective, and then that will change their location, and that'll change the vision. If you and I are in the same window and we're all looking out at the same thing, we will see the same vision. We have to get people into the same location. So as a leader, your job is to bring them to the location you are today so that they can see the vision you have. We can only do that. We can't physically pick them up and bring them to where we're at. We'd like to sometimes. Sometimes I'd very much like to do that, but we can't. So we have to do it through motivation. And then hopefully that motivation is going to change their perspective where they see what you see. And one of the things that stuck with me early in my career is I couldn't understand why people wouldn't buy in to what I was selling.
Right.
I didn't understand it. Why would you not do this?
Right.
You know, and it was my father who told me a very simple thing that it never clicked. He says, you have a vision that's in your head. When you're selling something, you have a vision in your head that if they don't act, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and all of it's bad. You see all of these bad things that if they don't act, this is going to happen to them. You have to take those visions that's in your head and plant them into their head. Because if they love whatever they're trying to change and they see the negativity, they're going to want to do it too. They're going to feel the same way you do. They're going to want to change. But we have to get those images out of our head, and that's where motivation comes in.
Wow.
My friend Zig Ziglar was amazing at that. He was amazing at planting those images in people's minds so they were motivated to change their perspective, thus changing their location and then changing their vision. It was so revealing when I learned that. It changed the way, because, you know, in business, you hear leaders saying, well, this is the vision for the company. But if you hire 400 people, do they all have that same vision?
Right.
They may all be on the same location. They may all be in the same building physically. But if they look out the window, they will literally see something completely different.
Right.
So it was an interesting dichotomy that helped me tremendously.
Wow. Well, and then you really get to look at people and make sure that expectations and what's important to them are aligned and congruent. Because the sooner you understand if you're all singing to the same sheet of music, the better, because otherwise you're going to find out, hey, it's just not going to work, or yes, now they can see it and they can come on board. I love that, Tony, because I mean, I think as a leader, that's the question every leader asks. Why aren't they picking up what I'm putting down? I mean, come on, everybody out there listening, that's why you're tuning in, like, why can't I get people? And Dad used to say that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, but you can put salt in his oats and make him thirsty.
Thirsty, that's right.
So I love that imaging, that what did you call it? That planting images. And then change that perspective, because until you do that, well, and that really relieves you of the burden of the leader from dragging people. Just, you know, it's up to you and everybody. All I can do is set up the enabling resources and construct, but then it's your choice to change your perspective or go to an organization that is more aligned with your perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that too. There
isn't. And I've helped a lot of people find other work, and they're still friends today.
Right.
So in essence, I terminated them, but I found them another home that's a better fit for them. Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And you are in a very, in sales. I mean, you gotta have the perspective for that, as opposed to somebody that may want to be more a CPA or into creative design. I mean, everybody is kind of wired and coded differently.
You got it. Yes, ma'am.
I love it.
So true.
Tony, brilliant. Okay. So Tony, anything else we've covered the 4 prices of leadership. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Well, one of the things that whenever I speak on leadership, I tell a story about my first experience with a leader. Mm-hmm. And this was one of my early bosses. This gentleman took me on my first interview as an insurance agent. And I walked into a home. It was a senior citizen, an elderly lady that was there. And we were selling them a life insurance policy. Before we walked through the door, my boss gave me some great information. Mm-hmm. He says, all I want you to do when we get in the house is say hello and goodbye. That's it. The rest I will handle. You know nothing about what we're doing. I don't want you saying anything to the client except thank you and hello, goodbye. That's it. I said, okay, I can handle that. He says, now take a lot of notes because eventually you're going to have to do this. Mm-hmm. So I expect you to take notes. So I go to the kitchen table with this elderly lady and my boss, and I'm sitting there and there's a bowl of peanuts on the table. I love peanuts. So I start eating peanuts. And all the time this guy's talking to the woman, I'm eating peanuts. So I ate the entire bowl of peanuts. So, after the lady had to get up to go get her purse to pay us for the premium, my boss turned to me furious, Tracy. He says, you realize you ate the entire bowl of peanuts. When she comes back, the first thing you better do is you better ask her if you could replace those peanuts. You will buy her another bag of peanuts. You understand? Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. I love peanuts. I can't help it. So the minute this lady walks back in the room, I deeply apologize for eating all of her peanuts. And she was gracious, Tracy. She said, sir, she says, that won't be necessary. She says, I've already sucked all the chocolate off of them.
Oh, Tony, you
learned a lesson.
You had me hook, line, and sinker. Oh my gosh. You're just like that. Tell me those stories. Oh my goodness. Sirs, oh my God, Tony, you're awesome. Thank you. That's good to remember. But I do love peanuts. Mm-hmm.
I do too. Now I only eat peanuts that are still in the shell.
That are still in the shells. I love it. Yeah, that's fun. Oh my gosh. All right, Tony. Well, Tony, thank you so much. Tony, where can people connect with you, get your book? You're on LinkedIn. Like I said, I love your content on LinkedIn. But how do they reach out to you?
Well, LinkedIn is a very good source. I am active on LinkedIn. It's under Anthony Boquet, but they can reach me there. I also have a website for the book, the Modern Solutionary. So they can go to modernsolutionary.com. Okay. Or they can reach out to me through the college. I do work for the American College. The American College, if you're in the financial service arena or if you touch money, the courses we teach can help you tremendously. Awesome. So anything financial, we teach. And of course, we have a great leadership curriculum. And we also have a master's in leadership that's second to none. So feel free to reach out to me. If I can help, I'm more than happy to do so.
Awesome. And we'll put all the links down at the bottom of this. Also, you have an outreach to veterans too, through the Penn Mutual Center Veterans Affair, which you got me on the board of that. And so we give scholarships away to veterans that are looking to transition out of the military and come into the financial services industry. So please, American College is just phenomenal and just a joy to serve with them. And Tony, I can't thank you enough for what you've taught me, what you shared. And it is so great. It's been way too long since we've caught up. But just keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for just what an inspiration you are to so many people.
Well, thank you, Tracy. You're the inspiration. And I can't speak highly enough. Keep doing what you do. You're touching lives and you're changing lives.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks. And to our tremendous listeners out there, check out Tony and please give us a rating wherever you're listening to us, YouTube, Anchor, Spotify. Love to hear from you. Thanks so much, everybody, on listening to What It Takes to Pay the Price of Leadership. Tony, you're the greatest, and have a tremendous day.
Thank you for listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracy Jones. Find out more about Dr. Jones at www.tremendousleadership.com. If you've been ignited by something you heard in this episode, let us know by leaving a review for Tremendous Leadership wherever you listen to podcasts, or by sending us a message through www.tremendousleadership.com.